Moving forward, but still staying in the SEC East, we have number 12, Missouri. I did fix the rankings, by the way. I did put in the college football playoff ones. Number 12, Missouri at number 2, Georgia. Georgia is a 15.5-point home favorite, and this game carries an over-under of 54.5, which is important because it was bet down through 55, which is the most key figure when you're talking about college football totals. It kicks off at 3:30 p.m. Eastern in its rightful place on CBS. I'm kind of sad we're losing the SEC on CBS, but hey, whatever. I absolutely love this matchup this year. This is one of my favorite games on the entire college football slate, even though we have a multi-score spread. And this is also, I would say, Georgia's probably toughest test yet by a sizable amount. I don't think Florida's really any good, and Kentucky's not really any that good. And here we go, Missouri. Yeah, they're, we remember what happened last year, but we'll get to that. Missouri does have a rest advantage, but they do have to hit the road, which does negate that a little bit. Georgia didn't really have to break a sweat against Florida last week, so I'm not going to come in and say, well, they played a rival, so they're going to be, no, they just rolled right over them. My question is, have we entered Georgia rolling up the sleeves territory? Especially, and we knew this was going to happen, especially when they don't get ranked number 1. They're going to be using that when they come into this game. I mean, they kind of feel like a NBA team, like one of the super teams, though, like Golden State, like the old Miami Heat, where they only turn it on when they need to. They're not taking every game seriously, but boy, when they play Florida, when they play a ranked opponent, is it roll up the sleeves and I'm just going to beat the heck out of you? I am worried about that a little bit. If we're talking about Missouri's quarterback, Brady Cook, he's 3rd in the SEC in yards and passer rating. He's having a terrific year. And it certainly helps to have Luther Burden, who is, if it wasn't for Marvin Harrison, maybe the best receiver in the country. He has Brady Cook has 20 big-time throws. That's tied with Jane Daniels for the SEC lead and also 3rd most in the nation. So we're talking about how good he's been. He's been excellent. I think his passing style and the offense that Missouri's running this year is conducive to Georgia's defense in that he is the lowest average time to throw in the SEC. He's not going to let the pass rush get home in that time, certainly not. But will that continue with Georgia's coverage is my question. They've allowed decent games to alpha wide receivers like Ricky Pearsall, Xavier Legette. So, Luther Burden is going to get his because they just run him across the middle of the field, say, here's the football, make 11 guys miss, and he does from time to time. Last year, Georgia held Missouri to peanuts except for Dominic Lovett, who they then went and took in the transfer portal. Please stay in Missouri, Luther Burden. It's so much better with you there. But I think that the Tigers' offense is much better now. Look, Brady Cook's improved. They're actually using Luther Burden well. Last year, it was maddening to see their inability to use him. They bump him into the slot. Now he's outstanding. That said, Missouri's defense, nowhere near where they were last year. That is an objective fact. But Carson Beck has been quietly outstanding, and he hasn't really missed a step since losing Brock Bowers. I questioned that, said, hey, can he still hit those intermediate throws? Yeah, he's playing really well. Missouri is 78th in EPA per pass allowed. Better quarterbacks have found success against them, like Jane Daniels, Will Howard, Seth Hennigan. But the last 2 games, they allowed 120 yards and picked off Devin Leary twice, and only 217 yards and picked off Spencer Rattler. So they've been playing well as of late. But I'm interested to know, what do your numbers say about this? If it wasn't for Bedlam, this would probably be my favorite matchup of the week.
This is a great matchup, Brett. And yes, I'm excited about it too. SEC on CBS, afternoon window. It makes me sad it's going away too. I'm enjoying it while we have it because I do feel like that's the rightful home of this type of game. The committee has Missouri number 12 and Georgia number 3, as you mentioned. I won't complain too much about the Tigers. And Georgia number 2, as you mentioned. I won't complain too much about the Tigers. I'd have them number 11. But Georgia is overranked for me. I'd have them number 7. The Dogs are number 7 in record achievement. There's only a 26% chance the average top 25 team will be undefeated against Georgia's schedule to date. Number 11 in relative scoring margin, outscoring their opponents by 6.8 points per game more than would be expected of the average top 25 team. Brett, I know what you're saying, and I know they're going to use that motivation of not being number 1. That's disrespect, all this. I get it. And if a committee put them where I would, it'd be like off the charts, outside of this world disrespect. They would never do that. I knew they wouldn't. But give me a reason that Georgia is ranked in the top 4 without mentioning 2-time reigning national champion. Like, that was even mentioned last night about this team's a 2-time reigning national champion. Like, great. Those championships are incredible. They are amazing accomplishments for the Georgia program. They have nothing to do with the 2023 Georgia team. That's who the committee's supposed to be evaluating, supposed to be ranking. Brett, I'm just saying, I wouldn't have them in the top 4, let alone at number 2.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I should be upfront with this. It's not a bias. I don't know, maybe it's a logic fallacy, whatever it is. I'm a big, especially with teams like Alabama, with teams like Clemson, with teams like Georgia. It is prove to me that you truly are changed, that you are worse. Otherwise, I'm just going to continue trusting the program, the coaches, and of course that led me to bet Clemson to win the national championship this year. But anyway, I could be stuck in that rut with Georgia. I do just want to put a hand up and say, hey, that is a possibility. Go ahead.
I don't disagree that this team is better than their resume suggests, but what are we doing if we're not ranking resumes based on the field this year in 2023? Like, to me, it's unfair to Florida State and other teams, because I'd have Florida State number 2. It's unfair to everyone except for Ohio State that Georgia is number 2, because I think there are other teams that deserve to be ranked ahead of Georgia, even if my numbers would favor Georgia on a neutral field against those teams. It was the same thing with TCU last year. TCU was not one of the 4 best teams in the country. They were like number 9 or 10 in my power ratings, but they had a top 4 most deserving resume, and they got in as they should, and then they pulled an upset, and more power to them. That's awesome. Like, that's why you put the most deserving in there, because anyone can win. But if we're just going to go with who do we think is the best team, just let Vegas do it. And why are we playing the games? Like, that's my takeaway. There's a long way to go. This game has a watchability score of 8.2. It's the number 1 game of the afternoon window for me. It's easy to understand why. An inside track to Atlanta out of the East Division is on the line. For Georgia, it's simple. Win and book your travel down the road for a 6th trip to Atlanta in 7 season. But a win for Missouri would give the Tigers the all-important tiebreaker and make the game against Tennessee and Columbia next week that much more important. Brett, I have Georgia minus 14 in this game. It's an 84% win expectancy for the Bulldogs. The Dogs were number 1 for me in the preseason power ratings, based largely on how good had this team been in recent years, how much were they bringing back, all those things. They fell out of the top spot after week 3. Last week, Georgia was a season low number 10, but after a thorough beatdown of Florida, as you talked about, the Bulldogs are back up to number 6 this week. So, this is a number 6 power-rated team. And to be honest, they'd probably be favored, and I would even personally take them maybe to win against a couple teams that I have power rated above them. That's just what the numbers say right now. The offense is ranked a season best number 6. The defense is currently ranked number 7. It's been a great season for Missouri. There's no two ways about it. 7-1. The Tigers have 2.2 more wins than my preseason realistic expectations projected through week 9. That's number 6 nationally on my overachievers list. And at number 24, this is the highest I've had Missouri power ranked all year. It's the best team we've seen in Columbia since the Tigers finished number 15 in my power ratings in 2018. The offense is currently power ranked to season best number 17, and the timing couldn't be better for this unit to be hitting its stride, because Georgia's number 7 defense is the best opposing defensive unit that Missouri will face all season, Brett. And it's not just the defense. The Georgia team overall is the best that Missouri will face all season based on my current numbers. While Missouri does have the rest advantage, as you mentioned, after being off last week, my numbers give the edge to Georgia on both sides of the ball, with the biggest advantage assigned to the Dogs' offense against Missouri's number 28 defense. Plus, as we mentioned, this game's in Athens, where Georgia hasn't lost since 2019. Remember, that was an overtime shocker to South Carolina that year. Could we see another game like that here? Maybe. But bottom line, I have Georgia minus 14. It's a 16% chance Missouri earns its second ever win against Georgia. The Tigers are 1-11 all time and on a 9-game losing streak in the series.
Yeah, this season, every time I see a larger point spread against Georgia, I'm at least a little bit intrigued to fade them. But again, they've shown that they put their foot down when necessary. And I think that this is a put the foot down when necessary week. Now, is Missouri less talented enough for that to be, they can just turn it on and say, nah, you're done, 40-point win or whatever. Now, one thing that I am looking at that I think does matter, that as humans we cannot escape, I think a lot of people are going to be baited into Missouri after going off last year's opponent. I think that's why the number is 15.5 instead of 14.5 or 14. I think they want people. I know this. A lot of people say, "Wow, they set their lines." I do think that there's a little bit of gamesmanship behind this line. That was an outstanding Missouri defensive effort that I don't think they have in them this year, no matter how good the offense is. But instead of betting the point spread, I think I lean under. I did actually grab it at 55.5. It has moved through with 55, which kind of sucks. If you're looking to bet the under, definitely try to wait until 55 pops. If you absolutely can't get it, It's probably still an under for me as long as this thing doesn't crash before kickoff. The word I want to use for this is smushed. That's kind of what Georgia's defense has done to offenses in games that they really care about. They just kind of sat on them, like a big brother bullying his little brother and just being like, no. So I could see that happening in this game, even with Luther Burden, even with as well as Brady Cook's been playing. That's something I do worry about. So I'd probably lean under the point total as opposed to taking either side on the spread.